Cool. So we're recording. So welcome to Everything Marketplaces. So this is actually our kind of fourth episode, I guess you could say. But we have on guests where we like to have marketplace founders and thought leaders just to hear kind of some of their experiences and unique insights operating and running marketplaces. So I'm super excited today to have on Juho, who is a CEO and co-founder of Sharetribe. So Sharetribe is a marketplace platform that allows people to easily take their idea to live marketplace using no code or their other product, which is Sharetribe Flex, which we'll kind of jump into. But I'm super excited to have him on today. As you know, I built and launched Studio Time using it today, which is the Airbnb for music studios. So you've also worked with hundreds of marketplaces and helped them take their ideas to live marketplace, but let's just kind of jump right into it and maybe hear a little bit more about your background and how you got into marketplaces and then started Sharetribe.
Yeah, sure. Hey, thanks Mike for having me. Real pleasure to be here. So I've been building marketplaces for 12 years now, like exclusively focusing on this topic. So I kind of like stumbled into that by accident. So I was actually still a student at the time. So me and my co-founder applied for a research project here in Helsinki, Finland, in the Aalto University, and that was about the sharing economy, building a sharing economy platform there. And we ended up building that as researchers were working on our thesis. And then that was at the time, that was 2008. So nobody's really talking about the sharing economy at any point. So Airbnb was just starting. So, but that's also when we realized the potential of this phenomenon, and then we spun the project off as a company, first building our own marketplace, but then over the course of doing that, so many people reach out to us and ask like, hey, okay, I have this great idea for a marketplace, but I'm not a developer myself. Like I don't have a huge budget, I don't have VC funding. Can I use your tech to build it quickly? And after talking to a couple dozen people like this, we realized that, okay, this is actually the big problem that we should be solving to really make it possible for everybody to build a marketplace business without having a huge amount of funding.
Nice. So that was in 2008, you said, right? Around there?
Yeah. So it's been 12 years now.
Yeah. So it's great to see kind of no code as far as like a recent kind of trend, and I think an awareness. So at the time, kind of what was that like? Did you have kind of one client that came to you, and then maybe can you kind of speak to that type of marketplace and kind of how you helped them kind of leverage your technology?
Yeah, sure. So it was there were a couple of twists and turns. So the company was started in 2011, and for the first 2 years we were focused on building our own marketplace. So we didn't do it for clients. In 2013, we pivoted and launched with the first client. So we basically did like a customization project for them, tailored the software a bit based on their requirements. So it was this marketplace here in Finland, where like companies could sell their surplus waste material to other companies who turn them into design items. But that was a really great learning experience for us. And then after that, we basically started automating all the processes and just like a streamline the experience, so that basically all the basic marketplace features would be out of the box there for people who start their own platforms.
Nice. And so was that like a peer-to-peer kind of marketplace or a managed marketplace? And can you maybe kind of speak to more like that, maybe that initial need for the marketplace kind of product requirements?
Yeah, definitely this kind of like a need for marketplace products and the whole sharing economy went very much hand in hand. So our platform was a peer-to-peer sharing platform for where people would be borrowing stuff from each other, and offering various local services. So definitely we at least initially focused a lot on this type of like a peer-to-peer rental, peer-to-peer selling of used goods. So these were the main categories, various types of services. Then over the course, we've expanded, and now we also do lots of B2C and even B2B marketplaces these days, but definitely came from the peer-to-peer world heavily.
Got it. And was that, what was that, I guess what is now Sharetribe Go?
Yeah, exactly. So that platform eventually turned into Sharetribe Go, that we officially launched back in 2014. After several kind of like a couple of pivots, we finally got the idea of, okay, so we should build this automated tool that works in a bit similar way than Shopify for building an online store or Squarespace for building a website, but for building a marketplace website. And that just didn't exist at all at the time. So we were the first back in 2014 when that went live. And in 1 year, we had almost 500 platforms using it already.
Oh, wow. So it's kind of interesting because you were basically building a marketplace platform to allow others, obviously, to easily take their idea to life marketplace. So in essence, you're a marketplace yourself, right? So how did you kind of balance, building out your product and then kind of building the demand for it and all that kind of initial feedback?
Yeah, I think that it's, so we were in a very lucky position in the beginning. Usually you say that they build it and they will come. So that's the mantra that you should never believe. In our case, however, it almost went like that. So basically we put these like landing pages out there, and it just turned out that lots of people at the time were Googling how to create a marketplace. I want to create a marketplace, and there was nothing at the time. So the demand really just was there. And basically we were able to focus most of our energy into just building the product based on the customer demand. And that's basically what we've been doing ever since. So we are pretty good at organic reach. We are really good at word of mouth. Big part of our customers are coming through referrals. And we just really focus on understanding what they need and developing the platform based on their needs.
Nice. Yeah, I think that was probably around the time when I think I actually just Google searched you guys when right when I was looking to start Studio Time. So
yeah, I think that was that's also 5 years ago, was it? So it's been a while.
Yeah. Yes. So out of curiosity, I mean, what was kind of the one, I would say, big factor for you guys that led you to kind of basically launch Sharetribe Go and then also launch Sharetribe Flex, and maybe kind of explain the differences for some kind of context for people, if you don't mind?
Yeah, definitely. So for Sharetribe Go, what we really felt that like at the time, our vision was that there should be like, could we really build like a tool that would allow people to build any type of marketplace without writing a single line of code? And that really was our vision for Sharetribe Go. So it turned out that that was quite a heavy challenge. So in the end, especially when marketplace businesses grow, it's quite unique, like what they want to achieve, and they need lots of integrations to a variety of products. Really often they also want to build their own backends that do machine learning and AI and like various like really custom workflows. And like what we saw that Sharetribe Go was a really, really great tool to validate the marketplace business. But after the first year or two, it kind of like we really started seeing that the most successful customers of ours, they would raise funding or just in general like start investing more into building a custom platform completely from scratch, which naturally was not ideal for them. They needed to do a huge investment. It was not ideal for us. So that was then what led to the development of Sharetribe Flex, where we really tried to combine the best of both worlds. So in one hand, this tool that allows you to create something in one day, no technical skills. In other hand, like this tool that like basically custom development that allows you to get anything. But the problem is that it's time consuming and expensive. So with Flex, we feel that we've achieved like a sweet spot where it's still, you do need to do development always with Flex, but compared to building from scratch, we see that the development times are 5%, 10%, something like that. And really the quality is fully comparable to something that you will be building completely from scratch. So, so you really can build an experience that is comparable to Airbnb and Uber and all that.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for the explanation on that. So do you have a specific kind of like use case or maybe like a marketplace that you could say, this is specifically what we designed Sharetribe Go for, and maybe even some kind of like points around that as far as, how, like to what point they could kind of leverage it until?
Yeah, I think that like the peer-to-peer rental case has like sometime how always been for us like the really big building block. So we've been looking at Airbnb a lot in that case, because like lots of the ideas that came to us were really Airbnb for X type of ideas. That was all the rage at the time. So we really looked into, okay, what the kind of things do you need to do in terms of availability management, in terms of like a search by location, in terms of like so when you're dealing with this marketplace where people are meeting each other in real life, as this peer-to-peer, so that means that also the sellers, they are individuals. So how do you move money to them? How do you make the user experience easy for them? And I think that these has been some of the things that we've invested a lot in, and still people say a lot, and that what they really like about Sharetribe, that the user experience is so easy for both the buyers and the sellers, or the hosts and the guests, depending on the concept. So it's really, there's no complex UIs. It's very like intuitive, like how you navigate the marketplace and use.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know from firsthand experience and then working with a lot of other marketplace operators, even when it comes to like the admin panel and the operator, capabilities, it makes it super easy to actually operate the marketplace versus saying, hey, how do I just take my idea to kind of like marketplace from a product standpoint? So, yes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah. So what's the kind of, so I think a common question that a lot of people have is, okay, so you have Sharetribe Go and then you have Sharetribe Flex. So what's the kind of the basic, maybe the delineation between the two that you would, maybe let's just use for like an Airbnb for X, say for instance, like Studio Time It. What is the kind of some of the key points that would warrant me to want to look at Sharetribe Flex versus Go?
Yeah, I think that your story is a really good example. You started originally with Sharetribe Go, and then you grew quite fast into like relatively big business. Like at some point, you were really like doing lots of revenue, and then your users really started demanding from you that, okay, so I really need this specific workflow, and you just noticed that to scale your business, you really need to add certain things, and those features that weren't there at the time in Sharetribe Go. So basically you were able to validate the business, you were able to grow to certain scale, but then basically you had like this long list of features, and we realized that, okay, some of those are really unique to your concept. So these are not needed if you're not building like a platform for music studios. So then we just, instead of just trying to always add all those features, because basically the same story was for all our other customers. So basically they were able to do 80%, 90% what they thought. And then the remaining 10%, we just needed to give them tools to build that by themselves. And that really was then like why like you then moved to Flex. So that really allowed you to build the custom visuals. It allowed you to build like a really custom workflow, some really studio specific things there in the workflow, and allow to scale your business to the next level.
Yeah, I know we definitely had quite the product or feature requests for you guys. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So kind of like on that note, since you have all these marketplaces, I don't know if you can speak to how many kind of marketplaces are that you support on each, but how do you kind of balance the feedback as you kind of build out your product roadmap? Because I feel like marketplaces, have the kind of the basic kind of core functionality and requirements, but of course, like at some sense of scale, they definitely are very specific to that unique kind of product experience. So how do you kind of balance that right now?
Yeah, and that's also like why, so especially with Flex development, so we are heavily emphasizing like making the developer experience easy. So really being developer first. So making sure that whenever we are missing some feature, our answer is that, okay, but there's an easy way for you to add it by doing a bit of custom development, which is a lot nicer than, sorry, you just gonna do this, which we never want to answer again. So, and that's been an important part. With Sharetribe Go, definitely the same challenge still exists. So, and we just basically are trying to aggregate the demand, see that, okay, if this request comes up more than all the others, that just probably means that this type of marketplaces are in most need, and trying to understand really from these requests also, like, is it really like a business, kind of like like something that before, like without that feature, people really are not able to move forward with their businesses. So what's both kind of like the popularity of the request, but then also the importance for their business, and just prioritizing based on that.
Yeah. So to kind of, because I'm gonna try to get you to dig deeper a little bit on that. So I mean, at what sense of like feedback scale, since you're a marketplace yourself, right? So kind of like taking that user feedback, say for instance for Sharetribe Go, is it like kind of 20, 30, marketplaces where then you start to look at it on your product roadmap, or can you just kind of maybe share more a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's basically the nice thing about this business is that our customers are very vocal. All of them are depending on our software to run their business. Like without us, they just cannot run their business at all. So basically we are getting as inbound, like easily like 100 plus emails every day where people are saying like what they really need from our software. So we don't really have to send too many feedback surveys. So it's really more about kind of like just like digging into that and really like asking people questions, understanding like what's the underlying problem, and figuring out like what's the smallest thing that we can do to solve like the biggest number of these problems out there. So basically there's no like a super secret sauce in that process.
Yeah.
So it's just figuring out from that aggregate like what's the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. So on that note, with getting kind of like hundreds of emails, I'm sure, you know, every day, like you said, I can only imagine now with I think, you know, the no code movement and just the increased awareness of it right now. Like, how has that kind of impacted your business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that like even we started, like people had less faith in like really believing that you can build like a marketplace business like without writing a single line of code. And I think now a lot more people are like actually accepting that idea. Yeah, that really is true. Like, and it's possible to like launch a business without writing a single line of code. And I think naturally, like when you have kind of like achieved that critical mass for the movement, that means that a lot more people are willing to give it a go. So in the past, we were so often hearing this kind of like a sad story, somebody coming to us and say, "Oh, hey, damn it, I really should have like tried you guys like 2 years ago. I wasted now 2 years, and I wasted like $100,000 like dollars like in paying some developers somewhere, like in building this product, and it's still not working. And actually, I would be able to build something better with your tools in 2 weeks." So now I feel that we are getting less of that like nowadays. Like there's way more people are just really expecting that you can start without writing a single line of code, and like that you only need to like build custom stuff at the point where you really are ready, when you really have validated the concept and you're ready to scale.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely used to get the same emails as far as people saying, you know, they wish they would have kind of discovered Sharetribe earlier after seeing about studio time and stuff. So kind of on the note as far as like no code. So I know that like a lot of people sign up for Sharetribe Go and take their idea to live marketplace and get some kind of initial, you know, some initial users, some initial kind of bookings. Then they say, hey, we have these, you know, specific needs that are a little bit more custom. You know, a lot of people right now, I feel like, are looking to leverage no code as much as possible. So with, you know, basically having two products, one that is no code, and then another that is a little bit more specific to as far as kind of being like a backend API as a service for marketplaces. How do you kind of see the future of Sharetribe as far as being, you know, how long people can use no code, or is that just an on-ramp to basically using Sharetribe Flex?
Yeah, I still feel that in most cases, like when businesses become really successful, that at some point they need to do like some variety of coding. Like I think that they're in this space, like Bubble is kind of like an exception, because basically with what you're doing with Bubble is essentially coding. You're just like a bit different user interface. So instead of typing words, you're like dragging visual pieces, but it's a lot of the same thing. You're really building like a databases and all that. So and then it's some kind of like a matter of style or matter of taste to me, like which one you think is faster, like a writing code language or writing kind of like a visual style editor. But I do think that at some point you will need like tools that will allow you to build advanced workflows, advanced integrations, and so on. But I think that we are at all constantly kind of like that point in time is getting further and further. So you are be able to get further along like without those tools. And I think that that's also like kind of like a thing for us that we decided to kind of like start from a clean slate with Flex. We built a completely new product from scratch. And we wanted that to kind of like focus on the other end. So make sure that there are no limitations on what you can do with that, and really work towards this where you never have to say to somebody, hey, now you need to move somewhere else because you cannot build a mobile app, or because like there's some integration you just cannot add. We first wanted to really get that end so you can scale as much as possible. But now I think that what we want to do in the coming months and years is to also bridge that gap. I feel that right now still the move from no code to code that gap still exists, and that's still like a relatively big to our customers, and we want to like bridge that and bring you more tools so that the whole transition is smooth, and it kind of like feels natural as it scales with your business.
Yeah. So on that point, as far as like the transition, so you do have a lot of customers that are initially on Go. What is that process like for the migration, as far as like time and resources, like for someone to say, hey, I want to take, make the jump from no code to Flex?
Yeah, I think the main thing here is that still at that point, so we have like a ready-made templates with Flex. So basically for certain types of marketplaces, you need to do very little. It also doesn't necessarily take a huge amount of coding, but there are other cases where you need to do a bit more work. And like in that case, so the data migration in itself, that's not a problem. Like we handle that. But you do need to take a leap in that you need to write a bit of code to basically make the user interface of your marketplace correspond to everything that you've built with no code in Sharetribe Go. And I think ideally that would be so that basically you just have the code base of the thing that you built without coding, and you would just start adjusting that right away and still with a great developer experience. So that's a tough technical challenge, but we are working towards that.
Yeah. Are you going to eventually kind of build out like a migration team internally?
Yeah, I think that eventually our goal is that you don't need a migration team. We just want that you are just able. It's so easy that you don't need any team. So that's our goal. But for now, basically how we work is that we have instead of like building our own team that does these projects, we are just partnered with like a network of companies who have become like experts in Flex. So we can always connect our customers to the best experts who have done so many projects that it's really quick for them to assist them on that process. So in that sense, we become like a platform also in the sense that we are basically this marketplace connecting people wanting to build marketplaces with best experts in marketplaces.
Got it. Yeah. So let's kind of switch over to maybe a little bit more kind of insights from running Sharetribe, and then just seeing literally hundreds of marketplaces kind of use your platform and some of the challenges that they're facing. So what are some of the most common, I would say, that maybe aren't just starting out, but are, have some initial GMV and liquidity maybe in a primary markets that are using Flex? Like, what are some of the challenges that they're facing that you're seeing?
Yeah, I guess the challenges that they are facing are very much the similar challenges than like any other marketplace business would be facing. Naturally, in the beginning, you have the whole liquidity like conundrum, like in the chicken egg problem, and I definitely think that's something that every marketplace founder needs to figure out their own way to tackle that. It really depends on the right way to solve that. Depends on your specific concept. Then when you start scaling, it's more about like balancing like how much to focus on demand versus supply and make sure that you are satisfying both sides, and really like it can go overboard in one direction or the other. And then once you reach that, then at some point you have liquidity in your own market, and the really difficult decision becomes like, what is the right time to move to new markets? What's the right time to scale? And usually when I talk to successful marketplace founders, what they tell me, like founders of really big like international marketplaces, usually what they tell me is that their biggest mistake was that they tried to scale internationally too early, or try to take too many new markets too early. And that to me is like one of the biggest lessons, that you just really need to like hone your core marketplace metrics like for a long time, focusing on specific markets. And then once you have those ready, then you start scaling, and then the scaling can happen really fast. But first you need to have the basis right.
Yeah, I definitely can speak from firsthand experience about scaling too quickly in different markets and internationally. So taking a step back, I definitely want to constrain in one market with studio time. So so to kind of speak maybe to some of the challenges though that operators that you're seeing or maybe getting some kind of feedback from. Is there anything, regardless of, I think the overall kind of business direction, but maybe like from the product side, like a product kind of ops challenge that they're facing, whether that be within, as an operator kind of managing booking, some of the transaction process or payments, or are you seeing anything in particular there? that's
Yeah,
common?
at least one thing we are noticing is that like you don't before you've created a really big marketplace, you don't realize how common like online fraud is. And like then that just like you at some point you just start seeing this influx of people who are using stolen credit cards and creating fake seller accounts, and then they are like creating transactions with those, and then they're doing immediately disputes to basically like, and in the worst case, like the marketplace is the is the party that is paying for those. So and like that's really it's really annoying to fight those. So that's like one observation that we've had, that you really need to have like a robust architecture there, like an robust payment system and like an insurance policy, like an escrow systems and all that in place to figure out like what you do with those. So that's something that we always notice notice with scaling. The other thing is that you just really kind of like you really need to like as the in general, like as the business scales, like the problems like really change. Like suddenly you are having some problems that you didn't have at the initial stage, and then you really need to react quickly to them and like train new team members that like are able to respond to those new challenges.
Yeah. So speaking about the fraud, yeah, definitely know that one too. Is that I believe you guys opened up third-party integration on Flex for like Jumio integration for ID verification, if that's right?
Yeah. So that's one of the big investments that we are making today. So we are building an integration API. Lots of our customers are integrating background check tools, like identity verification tools, API-based insurance tools, like all these types of like a trust and verification systems. I think that's our most popular like a single like a target for integration. So luckily there are so many great tools out there for using variety of these tools to verify the identities of both parties. There's now 3D secure payments and like all these things that you can use today. And I really think that those are quite important. I still think that in most cases, like it's okay to validate the business without those. So if you are not able to make anybody transact in your marketplace, then usually like making a huge investment into those tools is not necessary, unless that's your main value proposition over competitors. But as you start scaling, like that just simply becomes mandatory to invest in those.
Yeah. So I definitely agree in that. So as far as like for when it comes to building trust with marketplaces and reducing fraud, are there any kind of, I know of like Jumio, for instance, for integrations for ID verifications. Are there any others that you're seeing that people are using for Sharetribe Flex?
Yeah, so there's Checker for background checks. There's Onfido also for ID verification. There's a tool called Vouched. It's like a bit newer company. They have a really nice tool. Then we have like this for insurance. There's a tool called Sharetrtibe, which offers a really nice API-based tool that a couple of our customers have integrated for insurance. Then I think there are probably a couple of others also that have been integrated. I'm forgetting. There seems to be lots of these days.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, I'm kind of curious personally about the insurance integrations. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how that works from a user experience and the product kind of integration?
Yeah, sure. So in this particular case, what the Sharetrtibe product does is that it basically so it's for rental marketplaces. So it calculates. So this particular product works best. So it probably wouldn't work for studio time. It works best for like a peer-to-peer rental case where like it dynamically creates insurance policies for each product based on the product value, like what's the reputation of the seller or the owner of the item and so on. And then it calculates the right pricing, and then it just adds it as an add-on to that price. So then the marketplaces can also choose, like, do they force everybody to take it, or is it somebody that like you can kind of like choose to take as an add-on and pay a bit of extra. So that's really nice for that type of dynamic case. Then in some other cases, we have lots of customers also who have just partnered with more traditional insurance companies, and they just have like bundled into their commission like an insurance policy that is included automatically in every transaction.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for explaining a little bit more about that. So what are some of the do you have any kind of interesting marketplaces that maybe aren't that you have or people don't know about, maybe that are built on Sharetribe Flex that we can check out?
Yeah, so definitely like as I'm looking at the audience today, so we have Dan here who has built an awesome marketplace on top of Sharetribe Flex called Bookyaya. And the concept is that you can like authors of like famous books can organize live events, and you can book seats in those events, and those events are happening through online video. So that's a really cool concept. So I think I'm actually going to join that myself at some point as an author, since like 2 years ago we published a book called The Lean Marketplace for basically as a practical guide for anybody building marketplace businesses. Nice. So Mike is an avid reader. So we sold like around 5,000 copies in Amazon so far, and gotten really good reviews. So I was thinking that maybe I should do a book event there in Dan's platform. So definitely recommend checking that out. But yeah, so other than that, with Flex, we specifically focus on like rentals, services, experiences. In particular, we are seeing a big surge in, right now in general, we are seeing a big surge, not surprisingly, in the various marketplaces that deal with like online events, online services. So we have folks in Latin America who are doing like a tutoring, like language tutoring. We have like I think we've been talking to folks who want to do like personal training marketplaces, but they through like video courses, and there are lots of services that you can offer online. And I think within these times, more and more people are moving into that. So that's the biggest trend that we're seeing right now.
Nice. And then, yeah, on that too, I definitely get a lot of requests from people that are looking to also build marketplaces for virtual events and, virtual services and virtual goods. Obviously, that's kind of, due to the recent kind of events. But is that something that you've kind of, yeah, how do you guys think about that and maybe your product roadmap?
Yeah, I think one of the key things has been, again, like to make integration really easy. So different, like to make it really easy to integrate different video chat tools, whether it's Zoom or Jitsi or like, so the variety, like some platforms really like need to have that dedicated, like integrated tool where basically it seems like it's part of the platform, whereas for others, it just makes sense to instead just share a Zoom link, because Zoom like does so many things in such a nice way that you don't necessarily want to kind of like rebuild the wheel, kind of like reinvent the wheel there. So again, like to me, like the key is in like making it as fast as possible to add these integrations and like make it really flexible, also to make changes as you adapt your concept, because usually the first like workflow that you build is not usually the right one. So then you need to adjust and try a couple of different things before you find the right workflow. And that's kind of our core, that it's not only the first version of the marketplace, but really adjusting and changing and adapting, what I think is really important there.
Yeah, yeah. So out of curiosity, I mean, what is success look like for you guys as Sharetribe, and how do you kind of measure that?
Yeah, for us, like success metric is pretty straightforward. So we are successful if our customers are, and the way we see things, and we believe that this, like we don't want to see a world where basically like all the marketplace transactions in the world are conducted by like 5 big players. Like there's only Airbnb and Uber and a couple of others, and they are like marketplaces for all. Instead, we see that there's so much potential in high quality, like a marketplaces that target specific verticals. So basically we see that at some point we want to see that there are like 1,000 businesses running on our platform that are actually successful in terms of, let's say, an average like GMV of 10 million. Then at that point we can consider that we have really democratized this like online marketplace economy, and that's when we can say that we have been successful.
Nice. I like that. You're definitely making niche marketplaces more possible. That's for sure. So
yeah.
Yeah, so that's super insightful. Yeah, thanks for sharing more about that. I am going to open up to questions a little bit, but yeah, if you have any questions, just post them in the comments too down over here, so that way we can kind of get to them. I did have another question for you though, and that was, so you do mention basically enabling niche marketplaces to in the like 10 million and under kind of GMV range, or a little bit more than that would be great. what are you doing? Is there anything specifically that you're doing, that to help maybe some of the marketplaces that are your customers right now? That's kind of maybe like a new kind of initiative to get there.
Yeah, we are all the time we are trying to figure out like what are the scalable ways of like helping our customers. So one thing that we realized early on, that technology alone won't be ever enough. So technology is just a part of like building a successful business. That's why we created the Marketplace Academy. That's why we now have created the book. Like we have created lots of other content. I think the next step is also to try. So we are experimenting with various ways on connecting people with experts who are able to offer advice, like through online calls typically. And I think that's like one initiative that I can really see us scaling. So it's both experts, but then also like connecting peers, I think in a bit similar way than what you are doing. I really love what Everything Marketplace is doing, because there's really so much stuff that people can learn like by other founders, something that you really just like you don't have to learn everything the hard way. You can just learn from the experience of others. I think these are the things that we are trying to do to promote more, to basically like encode the best practices so people wouldn't have to waste all that same like time and money, because that's usually where most of the money and time goes, that really goes into failed experiments. And if you can like save some of those for later, and if you can do those faster and easier, then you're all good for scaling fast.
Yeah, I love it. Cool. So we actually have one question over here already from Kenny. Kenny, you want to actually you can jump on and ask it.
Sure, Mike. Thanks, man. Hey, Juho. Nice to meet you, man. I've been a fan of Sharetribe for a long time. I actually run an expert or mentoring marketplace for early stage startups. And the question that I have, it got jogged today because there was an NFX article that came out that they were talking about labor marketplaces. And in there, they said there's two key things that all marketplaces need to do to be successful. The first was to create liquidity, which I think is somewhat obvious. You have to match supply and demand. And the second was, how do you avoid disintermediation? So you seeing probably more marketplaces than anyone else out there, have you found any common strategies or tactics that have been used by marketplace founders to, at a broader level, avoid that disintermediation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It heavily depends on the marketplace types, but a couple of general things I've seen is that if it's a peer-to-peer marketplace, then the key is to create trust. So basically create systems like introduce insurance, like have escrow, like have all these policies that ensure that something that was not safe to do before, like becomes safe because of you. So if it's like a marketplace that deals with selling physical goods, like ensure that there's some if you buy from here, if you go through the marketplace, that means that if something goes wrong, you get your money back, or that you so you are not suspected fraud. So that to me is like very important. Like if you do that, then there's no reason for people to go around the platform, because then they're taking a big risk. If it's a B2C, like now people it's not the same thing, because like when customers are buying from businesses, they are not worried usually of businesses like screwing them. So then it's more about like really becoming like SaaS tools almost. So you really need to, it's not enough to just aggregate the supply and demand. Typically we see that once these businesses scale, you just start building tools that allow the vendors, typically sometimes also customers, to manage their workflow. And when you have that tool, you just don't want to go elsewhere, because it's just so annoying. Like when it doesn't go, when you have your calendar there, when you have your invoicing there, when you have your tax returns created there, you just at some point you don't want to leave. And that's the best way. So then if customer tries to go around that, then seller vendor is basically saying that, okay, so please go through this process, because this is how I operate.
Awesome, man. That's very insightful. Thank you.
That's a great question. Cool. We have any more questions?
We have some in the chat at least.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd be happy to ask this one. Juho, yeah, thanks again for carving out this time. Really appreciate you sharing your insights. I'm wondering, have you guys, you know, as you sort of see this graduation, and I apologize for the background noise here, as you see the graduation of folks going from Sharetribe Pro to Sharetribe Flex, have you also seen sort of a demand for, you know, some of these marketplaces that might sort of need, you know, developer help? And so, like, I've seen in certain cases where you'll have a developer community, you know, effectively join the marketplace, so these companies can effectively tap into that to help with some of the edge cases that might, you know, sort of, you know, be sort of later on and sort of in the roadmap for you guys in terms of, you know, feature set.
Yeah, totally. So like, I think that with Flex, like really the big part that what we are seeing already is that there's constantly more like developers who are basically focusing on Sharetribe Flex. Like as an extreme case, there's like one company, like their founders are based in Australia and the developers are based in Vietnam. So it's basically exclusive Flex projects and they have like 20 people already in the team. So they have like just built the entire business on like just helping people with Flex. And we are seeing, so today you have like WordPress houses, so you have Shopify houses. And in the, like we are seeing more and more that we are just seeing the Sharetribe Flex houses like spin up that are really like focusing on like streamlining the process of development. And there's really like big advantage once you really streamline your process of taking in these new, then you really can like take on new customers quickly, and actually they can get really affordable price too. So it's really like a win-win scenario there.
Thank you.
So I actually have a question kind of maybe to get a little bit more information on that, Juho. So what was like maybe the one thing that you did that helped kind of increase the adoption of Sharetribe Flex within the developer community specifically?
Yeah, I think that we basically, so in the beginning, like naturally like, so such a developer community and like any other platform, you have the chicken and egg problem. I think the first, when you work with developers, the first thing really you need to start from the product. I think we basically took Stripe's playbook and really saw that like, well, what they did like to become the dominant platform in payments is that they were just really developers first. So in every communication saying that, okay, really the onboarding, you really design the onboarding from developer perspective, like you design the documentation from developer perspective. We were taking kind of like a risk there because we knew that most of our customers are not developers, like, and they, so then really what we really saw that is that, okay, in order for like us, like them to be convinced, the developer who is building the project needs to be convinced. And if that's not, then, and if those developers are convinced, then basically the way it will work, and what we are seeing now today is that lots of agencies around the world, like when like new customers come to them, they don't want to build the whole thing from scratch. They want to like find a good solution. And then thanks to our solid developer experience, they just found us. And then they basically start recommending our tool to the customers. So that's like one big thing that we did. The other thing was that we had like lots of demand coming to us. So we already basically had the demand there. So, and if you are building a marketplace and you have lots of demand already, usually it's not that difficult to get supply. So basically we went to some of really high quality developers and we told them that, hey, you know, like we can send you leads. Like if you can like do one project really well, you can show that you can offer high quality services, then we can send you a lot more. And I think this has been working quite nicely with some folks, so that actually they are getting like the influx of lead from us, and then they are also bringing in our leads outside to us. So and that's I think that's been a good way to kind of like bootstrap that community.
Nice. And then also, is there out of curiosity, actually, are you guys thinking about kind of building out your own sub marketplace for connecting maybe service providers or developers with clients, or?
Yeah, I would say that that's a natural direction. Like so far, like we want to tread with that carefully, because at the same time, like we don't want to get this feeling that every developer feels like they're indispensable. So that kind of like they're just like one in the many, and that's naturally the challenge that every marketplace also faces. That like when you have like a huge amount of supply, how do you ensure also that really the high quality suppliers also stay there? and don't just feel that they are not competing with somebody else who's just offering super low price. So you need to get that dynamic right. So far we are really in the concierge mode still. So basically we are heavily curating that. So we kind of have the marketplace under the hood, but we are making that match manually. But I think that it's a natural direction that we move into that direction. It would be kind of weird if we wouldn't do that. But we just wanna take that move gradually, and ensure that we can guarantee the high quality supply when we do so, because that, to me, that's the key. We really, when we are recommending these people, we really are taking a pledge that they really can do high quality service. So I know that if you think of something like Upwork, there are so many people today getting disappointed when they hire the cheapest person in Upwork and then they don't get this type of quality. We just cannot have that. It's really tarnishes our reputation if that happens. So we really need to focus on having way more a quality control there and a verification process. So that's why we need to take it as well.
Yeah. Can you speak to maybe how many requests or you get as far as for people looking to potentially build with Sharetribe Flex, and then how many kind of customers you have? Just ballpark.
Yeah. So today there's just under 100 platforms live with Flex. There are I would say around maybe 50 more that are in development stage. So in various stages. So in general, the demand is huge. So every day there are 20 to 30 people who create their developer account. Not everybody starts developing, so many of them poke around a bit, but many of them are also non-technical, so then the barrier is still too high. Usually we, on average, we talk to 100 plus of those people every month, and then figure out what's the best path for them to move forward. So right now we're onboarding between 10 and 15 platforms every month.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So, actually, Liebe has another question that's pretty good. So he asked if you've seen any marketplaces integrate split payments.
Yeah. So can you actually elaborate a bit on what you mean by split payments in this? So by split payments, so I assume that you mean that you pay in kind of let's say you paid in a 3 months, one payment per month for 3 months, so something like that. So far we haven't seen it that much. I feel that that's something that usually it's rare that it's the most important value proposition in the beginning of a marketplace business. So to me, that kind of comes into play usually at the point when you really have big scale. And we don't yet have a huge number of customers who have reached the type of scale where it kind of makes sense to focus on that, as that system is basically focused on a very specific segment for customers. So it's just not for all customers. So you need to be ready to invest in something that basically is only relevant for a certain portion of the market. And I feel that at that point you are really at the stage where you're scaling and you're optimizing even for the smallest conversions. But I don't think that it's the most important thing to focus on in the beginning, unless maybe in very special circumstances where that's your main differentiator and your value proposition over the competition.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. And then we have a question actually. Dan, you want to jump in here and ask?
Hey, Juho, thanks for doing this. My question is, how much are you hearing from the Flex operators requests for CRM integrations like Airtable, and what are the features that you're hearing that marketplace operators are looking to add?
Yeah, at least one big thing is still where I feel that we are still lacking is that we haven't built a specific marketplace analytics tool, which is kind of funny because we basically detail what the analytics dashboard should look like in the lean marketplace. But at the same time, that's a really big project, and there are a couple of companies who have tried to build their entire business on just marketplace analytics. So far, none of them, and there are a couple of people who are trying that right now. So far, nobody has become really big. I think that's one of the areas where we would really like to to improve. At the moment, that's one of the most common like use cases for why people are doing stuff like in Airtable, and then they're pulling data in Segment and like various tools so that they can like build those types of like dashboards that can be really custom, like on purpose built. We are definitely seeing more and more of that. That's also like why we've invested in making it really easy to like pull your data out of Flex and like send it to various kinds of like tools, because it's just really often you have some like the same CRM just doesn't work for everybody. And the nice thing about Airtable is that it's basically like a no-code tool for building your own CRM that really like can do like lots of very specific custom workflows, and we are seeing more and more of our customers using that.
Awesome. And then
another one?
Yeah, go for it.
So obviously I'm doing virtual appearances with my marketplace, but we started building it before COVID virus, and it was, now Zoom is such a widely adopted product. I'm pivoting a little bit and trying to figure out how to ride on Zoom a little bit. But you mentioned earlier that you're hearing a lot of that. You're thinking about ways to integrate services like Zoom into Flex. So can you speak a little bit more about that, and specifically Zoom, because it's become so huge in the last 2 months?
Yeah, totally. And so far we haven't taken like a specific action outside that. In general, like just like making our integration APIs more smooth, that like so that they like this, you can smoothly, the Zoom APIs and our APIs can talk. Still in the beginning, like what I've discovered is that in most cases, usually it's not necessarily like to build like a full-fledged integration in the beginning, as you can always do things like nowadays, like everybody has their own Zoom link. So basically it can be more than, okay, you just share the Zoom link, and when somebody books, then you automatically send them that person's Zoom link, and then the call just happens there. So in my opinion, usually that's actually enough in the minimum viable product phase to kind of like validate the concept. But then like we do have a couple of people who are like have more of like the concepts. Let's say you are offering some type of service where you're charging per minute spent in a video call. And in those types of situations, like we actually haven't, I think that that's something that we should still look a bit more into the Zoom APIs to see like how can you get the data in like from Zoom so that you could just like instead of like building your own video integration, you could do that in Zoom and still kind of like do it in a reliable way, so that there are some challenges in terms of security and all that. So those are the interesting questions we are looking at.
Nice. Thanks for sharing more on that. I had a question to kind of jump back into the analytics really quickly. So what kind of integrations are you seeing on like, are you seeing any like Gecko board or any kind of dashboard panels being used?
Yeah, haven't seen Gecko port that much. Segment, really common. Amplitude, Mix Panel are both being used heavily as simply as like I think that just understanding the funnel and understanding your cohort metrics is super important. Like when you're like with your growth efforts, I think those tools are a lot easier for that than Google Analytics, even though still like the Google Analytics seems to be the default, and you kind of can do most of that, but at some point it just becomes complex. So we are seeing more and more of these tools. We have also like there have been some people who have been discussing integrating Looker, which is a nice tool for basically building like, so you can funnel all the data there and build like a really custom dashboard. So that's a really nice tool, especially as you start scaling a bit more.
Yeah. Where do you guys use internally yourselves? If you can speak to that, maybe.
Yeah, sure. So so we have like a variety of stuff. So we have been using a mix of, we still use Google Analytics. We have been using a Kissmetrics, though we don't use that much these days. We have been using Amplitude. Now we are actually, we are in the midst of like also like renewing our architecture a bit. Most likely we will build like a more robust setup using Amplitude. But I'm not yet sure, so we haven't made a full decision. So there are a couple of other players that we are also investigating.
Got it. Cool. Let's see. think we have another question down here. That was about, have you seen any examples of networks emerging within your system? So like multiple sellers coming together, you'll see. Do you want to maybe jump on and explain or ask this? Is it Param?
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Hi, Juho. So my question is about market networks, as in multiple sellers coming together around offering a specific service in a joint effort to one buyer. Have you seen that kind of interactions happen within your system?
Yeah, so that's something that we don't yet see. We don't yet have too many examples, but I think that it's becoming more and more common that we get this this mention. This is definitely an area where we are not as strong yet as in many other like a traditional marketplace workflows. So I think that we can also do a lot better. So we haven't yet built that many tools that would allow the service providers easily to pull together and communicate with each other and like do kind of like a group bidding. So that's something that today you can do it with Flex, but it does require you to build like a lot of in terms of custom workflows. But especially when it comes to B2B marketplaces, I think we are really moving into a future where we are seeing more and more of this, and we definitely also wanna enable more. So I've definitely like if I look at the past 12 months, there's surely been like a 3x, 4x number of requests that we've gotten on this compared to the previous years. So so for those who don't know, so then market networks are the concept like I think like the James Courier from NFX originally started using, basically. But I think you pretty much like describe it quite well. So it's like a mix of marketplace and a social network. So typically the social network is on the vendor side, where the vendors like communicate with each other, like do group bidding and like offer joint services.
Cool.
Thank you.
So we're almost kind of running out of time, but I did have a question about your book, which I definitely like, and I have a copy right here, so I'll kind of plug that for you. So what was, it's super insightful, and I think for a lot of us here, kind of like in the earlier stages, or maybe kind of bootstrap, since it is called the Lean Marketplace. So what's maybe like some specific takeaways from that that you gained when you were writing it that could be helpful for us?
Yeah, I think that many of those like we've already gone through like in this. So the basic things is that like keep the focus on a specific niche, like don't try to scale too early, really focus on your core metrics, especially the liquidity, which is really the key metric, like and really like if you don't have liquidity, don't try to scale. Like first have liquidity in one market, like you can like and then once you have it there, try to figure out a way to repeat that in other markets. And that basically like I think that like when like writing that book and when like interviewing all those people who are successful, I think they basically somehow like in various formats still kind of like the same story came true. So really like talk to your users constantly, especially in the beginning. In the beginning, you need to do lots of manual work. You need to onboard the sellers like somewhat manually, like do lots of manual hacks to get the first customers in like just do things that don't scale. And really just focus, talk to people a lot, and like make constant adjustments and look at the numbers. So it's still, I still feel that people are neglecting a bit often, like in the beginning, like the numbers and the metrics, and really that's like really is the key. Now in the beginning, naturally, also the qualitative things, so what people are saying to you when they're talking to them, it matters a lot. But still, you need to get in as much data as possible. Don't just keep building new features like without like really knowing like is that the most important thing that you do, but instead just constantly try to learn like and iterate and like do quick experiments and like refocus.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I think super insightful for all of us here. So I definitely can't thank you enough for taking the time to jump on here and just kind of chat with us and just share a little bit more about Sharetribe and, you know, what you've learned along the way. Is there anything else that you want to share with us about, you know, maybe that's kind of coming up or anything? Or?
Yeah, I'd say that well, like we don't have like any huge launches coming up right now, but like naturally it's more about like that we try to release something new every week. There's a public roadmap also that you can take a look for what's coming up next. Also, like if you have like if you are considering like using our software, or like have any questions about that, I'm very much happy to jump into a call with you to have like have a chat with you. Like I really like to me that's the best part of my job is to listen to your stories, hear what you're building, and like try to brainstorm with you like what's the best workflow for you, what's the best method of going forward, sometimes even discuss a bit about the go-to-market strategy. So in particular also like, so maybe one question also to you, that if you feel that you would like to benefit from like a network of experts that would offer this type of like a help on a more regular basis, then do let me know, as that's something that we are looking into whether we should emphasize that more.
Awesome, that's great. And then where can you point us to as far as like, you know, Twitter, your LinkedIn? Where should we keep up with you?
Yeah, so I would say that Twitter probably is the best. So you can my handle is a weird Finnish Finnish word, but you can put that in. So I can write it in the chat.
Awesome.
So you can find me through that handle. So that's usually where I share most stuff, though. Like for most of the best of our content, naturally, I recommend you to follow Sharetribe. Like, so that's like we really try to create the best marketplace content out there. I know that Mike is doing the same. You should follow him too. So we are sharing lots of the same stuff, and you usually use the same links are being shared by us both. Also at that handle, we are sharing all the stuff that we are publishing in our Sharetribe Academy. Maybe one more thing that I can mention and advertise actually now that, so getting back to that a bit. So we are planning to release a podcast soon. So focusing on like marketplace, all things marketplaces. So we have a couple really interesting guests lined up there. So hopefully I'm not spoiling surprises for our other team members who are who are kind of like planning this, as I now realize that I'm not sure yet like whether I was like supposed to say it here, but anyway, so now you are the privileged first to hear about this. So that's something that quite exciting that is coming quite soon. So stay tuned in our social channels for more info on that.
I love it.
We have and we also have a newsletter with more than 100,000 subscribers right now, and we are posting stuff there regularly. So you can subscribe in Marketplace Academy if you're interested.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for making the time to do this. It's great to chat, and I'm just gonna end this recording now.